Welcome back to the Warbird Mistress. To begin by apologizing for the delay, but I managed to slice my finger open the other day, and it kind of looks like I applied for a job with Countess Bathory. So now that that's all fixed, I'm trying to get a couple of days into this, but we begin with today, Friday the 16th of January 1942, and this is A Walk Through the War. Beginning in the Central Pacific Theater of Operations with the Hawaiian Air Force, the first significant deployment of aircraft begins with a movement of 6 B-17s, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Walter Sweeney, 1,100 miles south to Palmyra Atoll in the Line Islands for duty with Task Force 8. The Navy's Task Force 8 is led by Admiral Halsey, and his operational diary, and that's him in a rare shot in aviation greens, describes the need for Army aircraft assigned to his task force in support of the mission to evacuate civilians from and reinforce the military assets of American Samoa to meet the reconnaissance needs and act as a deterrent to Japanese ships who, upon seeing an Army heavy bomber, may withdraw out of fear of having stumbled upon a larger force than they expected. The naval components at the onset of operations consisted of Task Group 8.1 under Rear Admiral Spruance, with the cruisers Northampton and Salt Lake City and the destroyers Dunlap and Fanning. Task Group 8.2 with the cruiser Chester, supported by destroyers Balch and Maury, and Task Group 8.3 with Vice Admiral Halsey in the Enterprise, supported by destroyers Ralph Talbot, Blue, and McCall. Also assigned are the New Orleans-class cruiser San Francisco and the destroyers Drayton, Gridley, and Craven. The addition of B-17s at Palmyra, and soon also from Canton Island, provides useful screening for the advancing task forces and complement the naval patrol craft out of Samoa during this undertaking. Admiral Nimitz's handwritten addition to the plan, shown here, notes that B-17 should also serve as a screening force while the carrier forces retire from Samoa back to Pearl. Bull Halsey also noted on 8th of January 1942 in his operational plans that Canton's radar had been tested and was accurate at tracking aircraft at long range. As Canton was undefended, having B-17s make regular appearances in the area would make the island appear well defended and perhaps deter Japanese encroachment or direct Japanese attention away from the main efforts in Samoa and act in a complementary role to the radar installation. Canton could also accept and support both carrier planes, abbreviated VP in his notes here, and the B-17s, and plans were set for 6 of each to arrive on the 19th of January. As we will see in the next few minutes, they arrive early, and that brings us to Saturday, the 17th of January, 1942. Staying in the Central Pacific Theater of Operations Hawaiian Air Force, off the Hawaiian Islands, an unsuccessful attack on submarines is reported, while B-17s of Task Group 8.9 proceed to the Palmyra Atoll in the Line Islands and to Canton Island in the Phoenix Islands. The same entry in Admiral Halsey's operational diary, shown here, laments poor inter-service coordination and the Army's inability to manage their resources at the front lines where air and ground support are most needed. Ironically, he also comments that he did not inform the Anzacs of any of his own actions to reinforce Samoa, despite the area being surrounded by Commonwealth protectorates, possessions, and territories. And now turning to the other action for today over in the Southwest Pacific Theater of Operations Far East Air Force. On Celebes Island, B-17s from Malang, Java, staging through Kendari, hit Langoan Airfield and ships in Manado Bay. The strike does minimal damage, and we move on to Sunday, the 18th of January, 1942. Staying in the Central Pacific, the Hawaiian Air Force launches another unsuccessful attack on enemy submarines near the Hawaiian Islands, and B-17s of Task Group 8.9 begin anti-submarine searches and reconnaissance from Canton Island in the Phoenix Islands. Switching over to the Atlantic, the first increment of U.S. forces to be sent to the United Kingdom sails for Northern Ireland as 1,400 Army personnel depart. Presumably, this entry is phrased or dated erroneously, as it either refers to the first Army Air Force personnel to embark for foreign shores, or it is 3 days late, as the USS Chateau Thierry and Her Majesty's transport ship Stratford had departed Brooklyn on the 15th, bound for Belfast, with the 34th Infantry Division as part of Convoy AT-10. They depart as Operation Paukenschlag, a drum beat, also known as the Second Happy Time, commences, and they face heavy seas and the threat of U-boats on their trip, arriving safely on the 26th of January as the first American troops to disembark in an overseas combat area in the Second World War. On today, the 18th, however, a discussion between the armed forces brought up the need for improvements in shipping aircraft overseas. The matter of shipping was brought up while the 34th was at sea, and the United States acknowledged the need to improve how aircraft, and cargo in general, were created for sea transport, in order to increase the safety of both the aircraft and the crewmen, as well as the quantity that each ship could hold, as current measures were insufficient and often resulted in damaged aircraft arriving on British shores. That being said, we move forward to Monday, the 19th of January, 1942. And this brings us back to the warm waters beneath the wings of the Caribbean Air Force and the American Theater of Operations, as the O-47s of the 108th Observation Squadron Medium, 72nd Observation Group, transfer from Rio Hato, Panama on the Pacific coast to Howard Field in the Canal Zone, and then going back through the canal to the Pacific, while B-17s of Task Group 8.9 continue their anti-submarine and force projection missions from Canton Island. In the Southwest Pacific Theater of Operations, the Far East Air Force sees the 7th Heavy Bomb Group's 9th, 11th, and 22nd Bomb Squadrons transfer their flying fortresses from Singosari to Yogyakarta, Java, where they are joined by their ground echelons who arrived today from Brisbane. In other activity, B-17s flying out of Malang, Java, launch a long-range anti-shipping strike against the transports off the Philippine island of Jolo, halfway between Mindanao and Borneo, in what is just one more pinprick, against an overwhelming Japanese storm. And finally, on Tuesday, the 20th of January, 1942, we begin in the American Theater of Operations, where the 13th Medium Bomb Group's headquarters and 39th Medium Bomb Squadron transfer from Orlando Army Air Base, Florida, to Westover Field, Massachusetts, and begin flying anti-sub patrols with B-18s and B-25s. Turning to the West Coast, the 76th Medium Bomb Squadron of the 42nd Medium Bomb Group transfers from Gowen Field, Boise, Idaho, to McCord Field, Washington, and continues flying ASW patrols with B-26s. And finally, in the Southwest Pacific Theater of Operations, the Far East Air Forces, Major General George H. Brett, Commanding General Army Air Forces Australia, halts the ferrying of aircraft from India to the Dutch East Indies. The Army had been sending heavy bombers to Java by way of Africa and India, but the Japanese are able to inflict prohibitive losses on the U.S. Army Air Force aircraft in the final stages of their trip by using newly acquired airfields near Java in occupied portions of Malaya, Thailand, French Indochina, Sarawak, North Borneo, Dutch Borneo, and Celebes. And that was Friday, the 16th of January, 1942, to Tuesday, the 20th of January, 1942. In this Walk Through the War. I apologize again for the delay. A little bit hard to type when your thumb is twice the size it should be, thanks to all the bandaging, but it's a minor wound. It'll heal by itself. And but if you follow the Facebook group, you would have seen that, and that's a reminder to take a look at the Facebook page and the Facebook group. The group hasn't been that active, so it's really there not so much for me, but for you guys. Post anything you want about warplanes, discussion, thoughts, ideas. It's really a fan-driven group, and that's what I intended it to be, and that's what I hope it'll become now that, subscribers are way up. I think I have almost 800 subscribers now, so, we've really seen a lot of improvement lately, and I really appreciate all of your support, especially those who have bought merchandise through the store, those who subscribe on Patreon, and those who share this with their friends and, on their social media pages, just so that word gets out there and the people can enjoy the content. And that's really what it's all about. So in the meantime, as always, this is Claire, and I am the Warbird Mistress. Take care.